Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new books by indie authors. Your hostess for today's show is May Ann Faremouth. We hope you do enjoy today's show.
Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, a division of Authors Marketing International, an organization that supports writers and authors all over the world. My name is May Ann Faremouth. I'll be the hostess for this episode today, and I'm a multi-genre author. And today I am just delighted that we have a guest on this show that is someone who is doing some really amazing things to help us all in the writing community, in the author community, but even beyond. Chris Saye has written a book called Fly that has documented research that actually was done 10 years ago by a National Geographic explorer. But he's brought some very interesting information to the surface that I'm going to have him discuss with us today. So after that incredibly long introduction, without further ado, help me welcome Chris Saye. Chris, say hello to everybody.
Hello. Great to be here.
Well, Chris,
thanks for having me.
You've written a book about your travels to the Blue Zone. Tell us what led you to that and what the Blue Zones are, please.
Yeah, sure. So my wife and I, about probably 4 or 5 years ago, we started to see this big event of transition coming up in our life, which was we were going to become empty nesters. Our youngest son, we have 3 children. Our youngest son was going to be graduating from high school. And we kind of saw that a bit like a slow-moving train coming toward us. And we said, how is this going to impact our lives? Because we basically always had kids in our lives since we even met. I absolutely give my wife the credit for coming up with this idea. She said, look, let's do something that is dramatic. Let's do something that is that will be memorable. Let's go travel the world for a year and visit the Blue Zones. And I had to scratch my head and say, what are the Blue Zones? And it was, as you said, it was a book written by a National Geographic explorer named Dan Buettner. And there are 5 locations in the world that he identified where there was a high concentration of people who lived to be 100 or more, so centenarians. So he started his work off in Sardinia and studied this, and then came up with 5 locations around the world, which were, as I mentioned, Sardinia, Okinawa in Japan, the Nicoya Peninsula of Costa Rica, the island of Ikaria in Greece, and just to make it a bit more relevant and relatable, I think, to Americans, he came up with a place in a more modern blue zone called in Loma Linda, California. So we said, well, let's take a year and make that year around traveling the globe and visiting these places. So I read the book again ahead of time just to get ready, and then we went off on this journey, really as a way to learn about things, because we were interested in health and wellness and longevity. But we just felt like we wanted to do something that was memorable at this important point of transition in our lives.
All right. Well, what an amazing experience, an amazing journey. And I know that from your trip, you gleaned 3 specific tips that were universal through these blue zones that people practiced, people had as a daily part of their lives that really did contribute to them living to be 100 or more. So tell us, Chris, what those 3 things were.
Yeah. So that was actually, prior to coming up with the title for the book Fly, my previous title was God, Beans, and Why. And it was those 3 things that I identified, and it spoke to me in terms of the 3 things that were commonalities of these locations that we visited. And I can talk about each one if you'd like.
Yeah, well quickly, we talked about, the God in not so much, we talked about it in a broader sense of spirituality, of community. Talk a little bit about that. And we have a few more minutes here to go, but talk a little bit about those 3 things in summary, if you will, to give our listeners an idea of what those are about.
Okay. So I said God is just as one word, which again, all the places we visited had a religion that they followed. Majority, I guess, were Catholic. Then you have Shinto Buddhism in Okinawa, and in Loma Linda, California, it's a high concentration of Seventh-day Adventists, actually. So the point about having community around a church or a fellowship of believers who believe in the same thing was something that we noted, that pretty much everybody we stayed with attended some sort of regular church or religious activity. And it also, it wasn't just necessarily going to church on Sunday too. It was that's where they had friends, they helped each other. There was a community, sense of community that came out of that. And I did sense that for most of them, it was something they actually did, it was something they believed in their life. And I felt like a takeaway for me was that for the people that felt like there was something out there bigger than them, it took a little bit of the pressure of day-to-day life away from them, that they were able to live through that. So that was the God piece. The second piece was what I call beans. And that was because there was an absolute commonality that much of the protein in these places that we visited came from beans. All the places except for Loma Linda, California, which is they tend to be vegan vegetarian in Seventh-day Adventist culture. The other places all did eat meat to a degree, but not a large point. It wasn't the largest part of their diet. So they found, and it was different beans. It was black beans in Costa Rica. It was fava beans in the Mediterranean. They were a big part of the diet. So it was definitely, we noticed that from a dietary standpoint, that beans were a big part. And that's something we've taken away and we've implemented into our lives since we've done that, done those travels. The last part is the why. And I think this is maybe one of the most important things, but each of the cultures were very clear, and several of them even have like words for it. Like, I mean, it's a notion that's built into the culture of like, what's your plan for your life? You may have heard of the Ikigai. It's a book that was written about life purpose. It's become quite popular with millennials actually recently. And the Ikigai is a concept which came out of Okinawa, which broadly translated is life purpose. It's it's a bit of a Venn diagram of what you do, what you enjoy doing, how you make money, kind of overlap, and that becomes the purpose for your life. So definitely that was the why, and what gets you out of bed in the morning is a huge thing. And what we saw is that people in these places, really, they had that up in, we stayed with people in their 80s, 90s, and they were living life and they had a reason to get up every day. Maybe it was milking their cow. Maybe it was, working in a shop, volunteering in the local community. There was a real purpose for what they were doing.
And I think we talked in the Blue Room before the recording of the podcast, was that the purpose doesn't have to be grandiose. And we talked about, I'm Italian, my grandparents lived next door, my grandmother had a garden. I mean, her purpose every morning was to get up and work in that garden. And that was really important to her. I remember one day my mother wanted to go shopping and she said, no, I have to work in my garden. I mean, that was her purpose. So
absolutely.
Grandiose, right? I mean,
absolutely. Absolutely. Pets are an important part too of aging, because that responsibility of needing to feed, walk the dog, whatever that is, that really does provide a purpose to people as they age. So it's one of the tips you'll read on the internet now about aging, especially if you're living in the cities. Maybe you're not maybe you're not in a community like that, but get a pet, because a pet, as basic as it sounds, it provides a daily reason for being, something that needs you. You're needed in that pet's life.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to take a break and come right back and let our sponsors do their thing. We'll come right back. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Elle Ballard, and I'm the founder of Women of the World Network, a supportive entrepreneurial community of multinational women. I'm excited to announce we have second series launching for our anthology, Recipes for Body, Mind, and Soul, on April 7th. If you'd like to participate in any of our future anthologies or just check out our community, visit womenoftheworldnetwork.com.
Welcome to B4R.store, a bookstore for indie readers and indie authors, where indie authors can earn their fair share from the books you purchase. We have a wide variety of genres that you can select from. We also have ebooks and paperbacks. You can select authors by their first names, and we also have music. If you're interested in their city or country, we have that listed as well. If you are an author and would like to be on our bookstore, we have 3 options for you. There is a small minimal charge, or you can join our organization at authorsmarketing.org and learn how to better market and sell yourself. That is B4R.store, a bookstore for indie readers and indie authors.
Hi, I'm Charles Brakefield.
And I'm Rox Berkey.
Together, we write as Brakefield and Berkey.
Our techno-thriller series is 12 books strong, with book 13, The Enigma Tracer, planned for 2022.
Techno-thrillers are the cyber good guys versus today's darknet thugs.
We added our series prelude, Out of Poland, a 1939 historical novella, in 2021.
We also have 8 short stories available in family and women's contemporary genres, with more planned for 2022.
Please visit our website, enigmaseries.com, to learn more about why we say technology is today's weapon of choice. Thank you.
Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new books by indie authors. Your hostess for today's show is Mary Ann Faremouth. We hope you do enjoy today's show.
Back to the Indie Beacon Show, a division of Authors Marketing International. Today we are delighted to have with us a British-American author by the name of Chris Saye. Chris, we've had such a wonderful conversation about this great journey you took and the book you wrote. But tell us, after this journey you've taken and accomplished this wonderful endeavor of writing a book, what's next? What's next on your docket to come from all of this? Any plans?
Yeah, a lot. So, it was, like I said, this book was written in very much in a transition period of life where our kids were leaving the nest, and it was a question of, okay, what is next? What's next for our relationship? What's next for where we're going to live? What are we going to do? We had spent much of our life, not so much traveling, but we had raised our kids internationally. So we had lived in a number of different countries. That had kind of become normal to us, and we based it around what was good for the kids, schooling, that kind of thing. And now suddenly that purpose was gone. So it was like, okay, now what's next? So it's been a few years now of having written the book, which was very cathartic in itself, in terms of coming up with my own why and my own purpose in life, which was great. So we've now narrowed things down to where we want to be, to focus geographically between the U.S. and Europe, and then professionally, I have wrapped up a recent project, working with with a few entrepreneurs on helping them realize different projects, and now I'm looking to take on my own. So I'm actually now looking at a couple of projects that I will be leading myself as a CEO and as a leader of organizations. So that's the transition I'm in right now, and moving towards those goals here in the next year. And I do want to, not in the next year, but I do definitely want to write another book.
Great. Well, great. Well, I certainly know as a writer myself that writing is very cathartic, very healing. It's very expansive. And another point you mentioned was about community. And I think that, that's one of the great things about, working in the writing community, especially with Authors Marketing International, is that we are in community with other authors. We're learning from them. And I think, my grandparents, were my grandmother, God bless her, she went to church every day because she wanted to be around the people in the church. So, and they both lived almost 100. So I think there certainly is validation for what you're saying. And I think, also tell me if you agree with this, with what we've all been through the last 3 years. I think that community is even more important now, don't you think?
Oh gosh, yeah, and it's and I don't know that it's necessarily easier to find than it was before. I mean, I think things like Zoom obviously has connected us probably better than we did digitally beforehand. But definitely community and having that support, and because I know that the rise of mental health is a bit of a tangent, but the mental health issues that are out there are significant for people, and community is one way to help with that.
Yeah, no, I think relationships, networking, community, all those things are key for us to be the best we can be. Don't you think, going forward?
Definitely.
I think that
Yeah.
and eating healthy. I mean, I told you. My grandmother made this soup called pasta fazooli, which was a bean soup. And I bet we ate that twice a week, because they couldn't afford meat. So I do think our diet, I think there is something to beans, don't you think?
Oh, there is. And the other thing I would say, I mean, again, we experienced that in the blue zones with the beans in terms of just people reducing their having a lower animal protein consumption level. The other thing that we really noticed, and again with some of the older people, they had been through periods in their lives, and we noticed this especially in Okinawa because that was a side of the war that took place there in World War II. People that we met, they had extended periods of time when they were hungry, and that's something we can't really relate to in modern America, especially in terms of we feel like it's our God-given right to just be full all the time. And it's great that we've been blessed with all this, with these resources to be able to do that. But the downside is, our bodies did not evolve eating whatever we wanted and being full all the time. Our bodies evolved actually going through periods of hunger. So even past spiritual practice talk about fasting, and I think that actually ties into that. So there's something to be said for how much we consume as well, and in addition to what we consume.
Oh, I think that's interesting because so much of what you hear now from all the professionals is about intermittent fasting and the vegan diet or the plant-based diet. So I think a lot of what you've shared with us today is front and center right now with our world. So I think your research was invaluable, and I applaud you for taking the time to go and visit all these places and do the research. And I'm sure it made you really want to share it with others, and that's why you became an author and wrote a book. So that's great. Well, I certainly hope we see more projects from you, because I did buy your book and I read it, and it's amazing, and I highly recommend it. But talk about the journey you took and the writing experience you had. Did it really help your relationships also with friends, family, colleagues? I mean, did that really have an effect on that as well?
It certainly had, and I write about it in the book. And you've read the book, so you'll know that probably the biggest relationship it had an impact on was with my wife, because I took it with her, and we went into the travels, being a little bit cautious about where our relationship was, and it's many people end up getting divorced at that stage in life, and as they go through becoming empty nesters. So we didn't vocalize that, but I think in both of our minds it was like, oh, where are we on this? So but traveling together, going through everything we did together on this trip really drew us closer together. And actually writing the book, and which allowed me to also not just write about the blue zones, which was a central part of the book, but it triggered other things from my past, from my upbringing, my relationship with my parents, relationship with my wife. And I was able to address those through the writing. And at the end of the book, it is I won't spoil it for everybody, but it is a happy ending. And my wife and I relationship is significantly stronger now, I believe, than it was when we set off on this year of travels. Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, tell the listeners out there that story we talked about earlier about you went into that bar in that one place and
sure, yeah.
Tell about that and that's an amazing story. But that was all of this home.
Yeah. No, it was one of the most memorable events actually of the entire year. So it was in a small town in Sardinia, in the mountains of Sardinia, and this particular town has a bar which is locally referred to as the Longevity Bar, because they have a Guinness Book of World Records certificate hanging on the wall that signifies the fact that there was this family that owned the bar, where there were nine siblings who together, when you add up all their ages, they came up to close to 900. It was 800 and something years or something, and before one of them died. So it was like all this. It was like the longest running streak of siblings in the world. So they were very proud of that. So we said, and people were saying, oh, you got to go to this bar. So we went to the bar. We went there on a Sunday late morning, went in for a coffee. And I walked up to the bar, and there was a younger guy behind the bar. And I said, oh, is your dad here? And he was one of the siblings. And he said, no, he's at church. So again, there's your back to your God piece. And then I said, okay, I'm sure everybody asks you this, but tell me, when you ask your dad, what's the secret to having a long life? He didn't skip a beat, and he just said hard work. That was his answer. So it was, this was a guy that, and now his son is doing it as well, but this was a guy who had a bar, and still comes into the bar, still does something. He's polishing a glass or something. And again, that's back to the why and having a purpose. So that really actually got me thinking, and I'm still thinking about it. Fortunately, I've still got some time to think and come up with what that's going to be in those latter years. What's that going to be? Is it going to be a bar? Is it going to be a coffee shop? What's it going to be that's going to keep me going every day and working hard?
Yeah. Great story. Well, let's hold that thought. Let's take a little break here, let our sponsors do their thing, and we'll be right back.
Each and every one of us has a mission in life. Mine is to help people laugh through the good times and the bad. My name is Charlotte Canyon, and I'm an author, a speaker, and a host on Indie Beacon Radio. If you need me to speak at an event or autograph my book, you can contact me at charlotte@charlottecanyon.com. Thank you, and have a blessed day.
Authors Marketing International, a membership-based organization where members learn how to better market and sell themselves. Join us at authorsmarketing.org. Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new books by indie authors. Your hostess for today's show is Mary Ann Faremouth. We hope you do enjoy today's show.
Back to the Indie Beacon Show, a division of Authors Marketing International. My name is Mary Ann Faremouth. I'm a multi-genre author. We've been talking to Chris Saye. Chris, we've talked a lot about this extremely interesting journey you've taken to the Blue Zones and this great book you wrote about it. And I'm sure our listeners out there want to know where they can get this book. Where can they pick it up?
Yeah, so it's available on Amazon worldwide, and in hard copy or paperback and Kindle.
Okay. Do you also have a website if people want to reach out to you and maybe work with you on a different level? Do you have a website you can share with us or a phone number?
Yeah, the best way to reach me is through LinkedIn. So that's really my main way of connecting professionally with people. So you can find me very easily on LinkedIn.
Okay. All right. And your journey really expanded your life professionally and personally. If you had 2 tips to give our listeners for, why they should think about the Blue Zones or reading this book, what would those 2 tips be?
That's a good question. Sorry, can we start that one again?
Well, 2 tips to summarize, what you learned from your travels and the themes of your book. Not to give the farm away here, but just a couple of words of wisdom to tell our listeners about. We talked about God, we talked about beans, we talked about why, but overall, just I guess I can say it for you. Just do it, right?
Well, there is definitely just to do it, and I think the other thing that doesn't come out so much in the book, but we talked about this before, but it's really being clear about what it is that you want, and then doing it. So I think many of us are raised by loving parents. We get influenced by parents. We get influenced by society, by religion, by schools, and we don't always get in touch with exactly what it is that we want to do with our life, or be, or even eat. So really getting in touch with that, and there's different ways to do that, but I mean, really getting in touch with what it is that you want, and then going after it, taking action towards that is to me really a key lesson that I learned.
I think you're right. Now, I took a trip to Delphi in Greece, and I went to the Temple of Delphi, and inscribed on the temple in Greek,
Mm-hmm.
was "Know thyself." And I think it all Aristotle. It all starts there, But sometimes to do that, we have to take a journey, whether it's a actual, physical journey or internal journey, to be able to know thyself, to know how to go forward. And I think that's what you did, and that's what your trip demonstrates to me, and to the listeners. But I think for me, one of the really significant things you gleaned from this trip was that sense of community. And I know during the last 3 years for me, being in community, whether on Zoom or with associations like this one or many others, I think that really helped me become more grounded, but expanded me as a person. So don't you think that sense of community is really, really important?
Oh, yes. I mean, we touched on it a little bit already, but yes, I completely. And on our own, we're weak. We're weak on our own. So having a community.
Studies have shown if you spend too much time alone, or people that retire and do nothing, they die easily, sooner than later, right? So I think community and having that spiritual sense and eating right, I think it all works together. But I think what you did was amazing. I've learned a lot just visiting with you and hearing about it and reading your book. So we're thrilled to have you on Authors Marketing International. We hope that we'll keep in touch, and that our listeners out there pick up your book, Fly. So tell us again, it's on Amazon, and they can meet you or visit with you on LinkedIn, and it's under Chris Saye, S-A-Y-E. Is that correct?
Yes, or Christopher Saye is how it is actually, but you can find me on Amazon under Chris as well. So.
Okay, well, this is Authors Marketing International. This is Indie Beacon, a division of that great organization. I'm May Ann Faremouth. We've been delighted to have Chris Saye on our program today, and we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching the Indie Beacon Show, produced by B. Allen Bourgeois for the Authors Marketing International, LLC. Copyright 2022. Voiceover by B. Allen Bourgeois. If you would like to be a sponsor of the show, please contact us at authorsmarketing@outlook.com. If you would like to be on this show, it is free to authors. Simply fill out the form at indiebeacon.com. The music is provided by Happy Follows. The music is entitled